Number 2. Human History. The Younger Dryads. Roughly 13,500 years ago, during the last time the Earth was whole, the surface of Earth held three distinct human civilizations, each aligned with a different aspect of consciousness, memory, and planetary interface. The Atlanteans worked through structure. They interfaced with the Earth's grid using crystalline technology and conscious energy systems. The Tower Group worked through containment, creating artificial orders of control, imposing hierarchy, language, law, and separation. The third lineage, often unspoken and yet deeply encoded in the land itself, were the Younger Dryads. They did not rule, build, or expand. Their civilization moved through seasonal cycles. They followed migratory patterns, ritual memory, and harmonic resonance with the living Earth. They lived in forests and riverlands, or any high-frequency surface pockets where the field pulsed strongest. While the Atlanteans mapped the grid, the Dryads moved with it. Their way of life was deeply coherent, but left behind no monuments to study. They were not primitive. Their entire cultural framework was based on direct relationship with the field. Children were often born already aligned to the local frequencies. Rituals were used as recalibrations to the field. They did not record their history because they existed as a living memory, repeating itself through cycles. For thousands of years, they existed well known across the surface field. That world ended. Around 12,000 years ago, the planetary field fractured. The Atlantean grid failed. The Earth flooded. When the surface stabilized post-flood, only one thread of humanity remained present on the surface: the Tower Group. They reshaped the human field so completely that there wasn't a field that could hold either the Atlanteans or the Younger Dryads. Today's systems, centralized power, extractive hierarchy, and fragmented history are not the result of evolution or an inevitable process. They are the continuation of a singular line that outlived the others through positioning and control. The Atlanteans and the Younger Dryads were phased out. Literally, their memory was sealed from the local field, overwritten by noise, and replaced with a single allowable version of what human life can be. Most people today have no concept of civilizations that live through coherence. Even visions of advanced alien life are shaped by Tower Group assumptions: craft, command, conquest. The Younger Dryads embodied none of these, yet their presence remains stored in the field. They survived by encoding their return into the Earth itself. The name Younger Dryads does not refer to their age, nor does it imply that they were subordinate to any other civilization. The word younger refers to timing. They were a harmonic lineage called forward by the Earth during a specific phase of planetary alignment. Civilizations do not arise only through invention or survival. Some are summoned directly through the field. The Dryads emerged when Earth required coherence through presence rather than structure. The Atlanteans had already established a powerful resonance with the planetary grid. Their work with crystalline fields, harmonic nodes, and consciousness interface had matured over many generations. When Atlantean society began to diverge, splitting between alignment and ambition, leading up to its demise, the field itself compensated. The Younger Dryads appeared as a balancing frequency. Harmonic lineages emerge as responses to field conditions. During this period, the Earth's awareness was not centered on domination or expansion. It was centered on calibration. The Dryads carried that calibration through seasonal attunement, relational continuity, and a form of memory that did not require externalization. The Younger Dryads maintained their continuity by resonance. A person became Dryad by aligning with a specific field frequency. It was not something you needed to be born into. Some, however, were born into Dryad-aligned communities. Some were called through dreams, illness, migration, or sudden relational convergence. There was no test or rite of passage. When someone resonated, the field accepted them, and they began to carry memory. This did not mean they were disembodied or non-physical. The Dryads were fully present in form. They could eat, bleed, laugh, raise children, and live alongside others just as the Atlanteans and Tower-aligned humans did. What differentiated them was not their biology, but the way their form responded to the field around them. A Dryad child born to a Tower-aligned parent would still calibrate to the land rather than hierarchy. A Dryad adult could physically live among Atlanteans, but would still operate from a completely different awareness structure. In some cases, Dryads had children with non-Dryads. These children would thus inherit field potential. Whether or not that potential blossomed depended entirely on resonance. If the surrounding field was polluted through trauma, architecture, dissonant language, or energetic severance, the Dryad imprint might never activate. Dryad memory could sleep for generations without being lost. It waits for alignment. The Younger Dryads' lives were structured through rhythm. Any settlements formed were formed where the land called them, and movement occurred when the signal changed. Ritual is the way memory remained alive. Dryad culture repeated itself seasonally through alignment. Certain actions were only performed at certain times because the field only supported them then. Planting, harvesting, singing, fasting, joining, each carried meaning far beyond function. These cycles were their records. No libraries were needed because no memory was ever externalized. Knowledge was passed through resonance, proximity, and embodiment. A child learned the rituals of their village by rhythm. Infants were born into a living field already tuned to the behavior of their elders. Songs were remembered, dances were re-entered. Even when a person forgot, the land could remind them. In terms of direct relations with other Atlanteans, the Younger Dryads settled between them. Where the Atlanteans placed crystalline arrays at planetary intersection points, the Dryads lived along the harmonics that flowed outward to forests, rivers, wetland basins, volcanic thresholds, and migratory paths. These were selected based on the pulsing clarity of the local field. Some Dryad communities lived within range of Atlantean territories with mutual recognition, though not always mutual understanding. The Atlanteans often viewed the Dryads as wild or unserious people without structure. What they failed to realize was that the Dryads preserved coherence by never stepping outside of it. They remained inside of knowledge. That difference often made them appear invisible, even when they were close. The Tower Group, by contrast, viewed the Dryads as incompatible. Their presence disrupted control structures. Dryad communities did not operate under hierarchy, law, or scarcity, which made them nearly impossible to contain. In some regions, Tower-aligned expansions avoided Dryad settlements entirely, while others sought to overwrite them directly, building dissonant architecture, introducing invasive rituals, or manipulating relational bonds. The Dryads rarely fought back. They relocated when the field sourced. Currently, across the surface of the Earth, countless sites now labeled mystical, sacred, or unknown origin once held Dryad presence. The reason they remained hard to categorize is because they were never designed to be permanent in physical form. As the Atlantean grid began to fail and the Earth's field destabilized, the Dryads enacted a precise and intelligent form of continuity. They began encoding their memory across time and space using tools most civilizations would not recognize as infrastructure. They placed their presence into seasonal loops, ritual songs, migratory rhythms, land-based movement, and dream transmission. They understood that the surface would not hold them physically after the flood. So they prepared to return through resonance. It should be noted that this is not a metaphor. They left behind presence, stored in places, and actions that could only be unlocked by alignment. Certain rituals, when performed without distortion, still trigger field memory. Certain regions, when entered with coherence, still echo Dryad behavior. Some individuals carry fragments without knowing, acting out memory loops with no formal exposure. This was the design. Not to preserve artifacts, but to preserve the potential for reactivation. Children were central to this work. In the final decades before the flood, many Dryad communities became focused on seeding memory into field-aligned offspring. These children were raised to become receivers. Their role was to anchor frequencies that could one day be recognized and mirrored again. Most of these child lines dissolved after the collapse. The frequencies, however, still remain. In some cases, entire ancestral loops exist solely to protect one dormant resonance until it is safe to awaken. After the flood, the Tower Group consolidated its presence across the surface. Their model of civilization required complete control over memory, direction, and identity. This meant the spontaneous return of a resonance-based lineage was unacceptable. As soon as the field began to stabilize, the Tower Group acted to prevent any reactivation of Dryad continuity. The first line of interference was ritual. Tower-aligned agents introduced distorted versions of seasonal rites, breaking the timing and symbolic resonance of practices that once carried field memory. Songs were inverted, gestures were repurposed. In many regions, Dryad behavior was mimicked just enough to collapse the memory while preventing its re-entry. This created confusion in descendants who instinctively remembered but could no longer find the real signal. The second line was architectural. New settlements were established with geometry and materials that scrambled the local field. Certain harmonic sites were overbuilt, redirected, or buried. Stone circles, mounds, and river temples were destroyed or ritualized incorrectly. This broke the feedback loop between people and place, severing the Dryad ability to remember through the environment. Many tower group structures were built unharmoniously on top of Dryad structures with the purpose of disruption. The third line was linguistic. Language was written to fragment relational continuity. Words that once held frequency were replaced with abstraction. Generational memory was recoded into myth, then into fiction, then erased entirely. Children born with Dryad resonance were labeled as distracted or mad. Many were assimilated, some were eliminated. The continuity of the Younger Dryads has never depended on preservation. In certain locations, their presence still loops through seasonal rhythm, ritual, behavior, instinct, or familiarity to forgotten gestures.